Hello there. Just a quick one before the special episode starts, that I won't be doing the continuation of Shakespeare and the Shadowy Figure this week. We will return to that next week. So don't you worry if you come to the end of this episode and think, but where's the story? It'll be back. Don't worry. Anyway, enjoy today's episode. It's a thriller. In the 16th century, a man with a gold-hooped earring and a little goatee picked up a quill and wrote some of the finest sonnets the world has ever seen. 500 years later, a man with nothing better to do sits down with a microphone and tries to work out what the hell that bloke was going on about. Welcome to the final couplet. Hello there, and welcome back to the final couplet with me, Theo Cowan, and for the first time ever, a very special guest. You've obviously already seen the name when you've clicked on the podcast episode, but it is the fantastic actor Emma Paetz. Emma was born in Canada and moved to England at the age of 21. She's shaking her head. 22. Obviously, I've done my research heavily. And she studied at the Guildhall School of Music and Drama before going on to act in various TV and theatre shows, Inc., Pennyworth on HBO Max, and Gentleman Jack also on HBO. So you've made a bit of a name for yourself on there, haven't you, Emma?
Yeah.
Welcome. Thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
Now, I'm going to start with a question, if you don't mind.
I don't.
The question is, how well do you know Shakespeare? Not personally, obviously, but how well do you know him, his work? Do you like him? That was multiple questions, but You know what I mean.
Well, I've done a few questions online to sort of feel better about myself. It's like the Shakespeare quiz, and I don't do too bad on those.
Okay. What sort of a score are we talking?
I don't like to think in such tawdry terms as that, but quite well.
Okay,
the score
great.
is well.
The score is well. So the answer is well.
Yes.
In fact.
But no, in terms of his actual work and stuff, I don't know. I would say, because I went to drama school, obviously he, in British drama schools, is a very big part of the curriculum, or he was when I was there. I've seen a lot of his plays. I find it, I don't know if it's the same in the UK. I think it's a little bit different in North America, but when people talk about, like in Canada, when people talk about their relationship to Shakespeare, they'll often talk about it as, they'll be like, oh yeah, I've read a lot of his stuff.
Right, yeah.
Rather than like, have you seen it or something?
Yeah, I think because in England, I don't know about Canada, but we're forced to read Shakespeare in secondary school.
Yeah, no, but that's what I'm saying. In
Right.
Canada, you are. But here, I guess theater is more something you would go to a play or something. Like you probably went on a field trip.
Right,
to go
yeah,
see,
yes.
you
I
know.
did actually, yeah. Yeah. Oh, so that was not a thing in Canada.
Well, no, theater just isn't as big a thing.
Right, but Shakespeare is quite a big deal over there.
I'd never heard of him until I moved to the UK.
Okay, well, I think we've established you know him reasonably well, but do you fall asleep during his work?
Never.
Never
Ever.
fallen asleep. Never left a Shakespeare show?
Ooh, well, I've never left a show at all.
Haven't you?
No.
Wow. That is
Are you committing
amazing.
yourself to the airwaves saying that you have?
Yeah, absolutely. I've left multiple shows, multiple Shakespeare shows. Not going to name them, but I have left them.
And was it because of length?
Didn't know what was going on.
Right.
Acting was very Shakespeare.
Yes.
You know, the English Shakespeare acting.
Where they do a gesture for like, me lady's talents
Yeah,
have
and then
left me cold.
Exactly.
And they're doing big hands gesture.
Yeah, like
The listener can't see,
yeah.
but I was cupping my hands.
Yeah, as if she had breasts, which she does. Oh, good times. Fantastic. Now listen, I have asked you to look at the famous Sonnet 30, which I'm sure you knew very well before reading it.
Yes.
Of course, it's the one that everyone talks about.
They
it's
do.
up there with the big ones.
Yes.
Let's dive in to Sonnet 30, and it shall be read by Emma Paetz.
When to the sessions of sweet silent thought I summon up remembrance of things past, I sigh the lack of many a thing I sought, and with old woes new wail my dear time's waste. Then can I drown an eye, unused to flow, for precious friends hid in death's stateless night, and weep afresh love's long since cancelled woe, and moan the expense of many a vanished sight. Then can I grieve at grievances foregone, and heavily from woe to woe tell o'er the sad account of fore bemoaned moan, which I knew pay, as if not paid before. But if the while I think on thee, dear friend, all losses are restored, and sorrows end.
Thank you. That was really nice to hear, because I've just been doing this on my own.
Yeah.
I haven't really heard them out loud, apart from in my own voice.
And tell me this, do you panic when you encounter a word like o'er, which I certainly did, it's
absolutely
how hard do you lean into it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you do the o, or do you say over?
That is, don't do that.
Don't do that. Don't say over. That's not how it's spelt. But sometimes I've done that.
You have?
Mm-hmm.
Uh-oh. Do you get angry letters?
No. There's no Shakespeare purists on it. Well, actually, I don't know if they're... Maybe they're just silently at home fuming. Tutting. Silently tutting. And it was really nice to hear it in your accent. Not in the accent that I own.
Well, how do you know I'm not putting one on?
You might be, and it would be weird if you were. This whole chat is just in a different accent, but maybe that's what actors do. I don't know. Well, I did actually hear that, if this were to be read in Shakespeare's day, it might even sound a little bit more like the North American accent than it would, say, my accent.
Well, that's a rhotic accent, isn't it, darling?
Yes, well, it is. And for those of you at home that are stupid enough not to know what rhotic is, Emma?
It means you say the R at the end of a word.
Yeah, there you go. So North American...
As in Shakespeare.
Shakespeare. Maybe Bristolian, West Country around here. And obviously North Americans do that as well. So it is interesting hearing it in that accent. Mm-hmm. Right, let's talk about the bloody sonnet, shall we? Thoughts, feelings? How did it make you feel? Did you cry?
Well, if I want to be like Shakespeare, I'd say it might have made me cry, but I don't usually do that. That's not normal for me to do.
I'm not a crier.
As he's keen to point out here.
Yeah.
Listen, I was really all for the sonnet the entire first 12 lines. Really liked it. Mm-hmm. And I have to admit that the final couplet, ding, ding, ding.
Ding, ding, ding. Name the podcast.
Sounded a little bit tacked on.
Interesting.
It sort of felt to me like he had this sonnet that he didn't know what he was going to do with it, and then realized he actually owed someone a sonnet. I was like, I'll use this one.
Yeah, now you mention it, it kind of does, because he just talks about himself for ages.
Yeah, and then goes, suddenly he's like,
oh, by the way.
Yeah. You make me happy, though.
Yeah. Actually, an interesting take on that, which, looking back at some of the previous 30, there's definitely some like that.
Yeah.
Sonnet 29, which I did last week, was very humble Shakespeare, which we haven't really heard much of before. But a lot of the ones before, he harps on about himself a lot, and then at the end says, oh, I love you.
Yeah.
Which is, I don't know, if I was receiving that, say you received this when you were, when you were around in the 1500s,
yes.
How would you feel about that?
Well, I imagine it would sort of be like, when I was in junior high, it was sort of a thing for kids trying to date other kids. I was just trying not to gender it because it could go either way.
Yeah.
You'd like write out lyrics to a song and then give that to the other person. And it's like, well, it's not that personal, is it? But I guess it's a nice gesture.
Yeah, that's very true. But are you saying that Shakespeare didn't write this,
Well,
Emma?
he did. But the thing is, he's probably got a drawer in his desk that he keeps a stack of things that he's like, listen, I'm going to make something out of this in a bit.
Very interesting theory. You think he's just got loads and loads of sonnets ready to rustle up if he finds someone attractive, or?
Well, no, I think maybe if he really finds someone attractive, he might be inspired to. But I'm saying that he's got sonnets and bits of writing and stuff for when the well runs a bit dry and he needs to produce something.
Absolutely. I think that's a good theory.
Yeah.
And if I were to receive this, I would think, well, it's a man that's in touch with his emotions for sure.
But not too in touch, as he points out.
Not too in touch, but sounds very in touch, actually. Almost too in touch, I'd say. Almost too much crying for me. I would think maybe a bit emotionally unstable.
Why? Because he's just sitting there and then he starts crying? He starts bemoaning things that he's already bemoaned?
Yeah. I mean, he's bemoaning things, previously bemoaned things.
Yeah.
A lot of bemoaning.
Yeah, at what point, we moaned that already.
Yeah, we've
Let's
moaned
bemoan forward, not backwards.
Yeah, don't bemoan the past, bemoan the future.
Yes.
Global warming.
Yeah.
Well,
fire of 1666, that was very hot, wasn't
very,
it?
Very, very hot, and probably caused a hole in the ozone layer.
Yes.
And that's how that works. Yeah, interesting. A lot of bemoaning, a lot of crying. Should we go through it line by line and just chat through it that way? I think we might have different ideas on,
on might come to blows.
We might come to blows. We might really have to fight it out. But I think this is relatively straightforward in terms of understanding potentially.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it would be a good idea to go line by line.
Yeah.
So, Emma, can you just read the first couplet?
Yes. When to the sessions of sweet silent thought I summon up remembrance of things past.
Perfect.
Pretty straightforward.
Pretty straightforward.
He's sitting there zoning out.
He's zoning out.
And then he starts thinking about the past.
Where do you imagine him sitting?
I really picture him in front of a window.
Do you?
Yeah.
Interesting. Looking out?
Yep.
Or just looking down his
no,
lap?
Well, it could be either. I don't think he knows where he is.
No,
he's in the abyss somewhere.
Yeah, and I've just put, personally, he's just having a lovely think.
Okay,
But you think more...
Less intentional than that.
Right, he's not gone to the chair to sit down and think.
Yeah, he thought, I'm tired of standing. Oh, what's that out there? I'm going to sit here. Oh, what's that on my lap? Uh-oh, I'm thinking about the past. How'd that happen?
Wow, okay. Yeah, okay, pretty straightforward. Okay, let's carry on.
I sigh the lack of many a thing I sought, and with old woes new wail my dear time's waste.
The first little glimpse of sighing.
Yes. First of many.
Big sigh, do you think?
Yeah, might kind of arise as a little bit of a
an angry sigh.
Well, yeah, because he says his life didn't turn out how he wanted it to.
Right. Interesting. Already we're at blows.
Okay, go on.
Get out. I thought of it
right
like that.
Okay.
But I have sort of painted this picture of a slightly pathetic Shakespeare in previous episodes. So interesting to see that he's maybe a bit not. Although I have painted him as a bit of an arsehole as well.
Yeah.
But listen, I like Shakespeare, don't get me wrong, but we
all have our flaws.
Yeah, exactly. And so more of a sort of frustrated sigh.
Yes. And I do find the my dear time's waste particularly terrifying.
Really?
I don't like to think about that.
So, the time's wasted away.
It just goes by, doesn't it? And you don't get the things that you wanted. Which is what he's telling us.
Yeah. At least he's friends with time. Dear time.
Yeah, that's true.
That's nice. Nice little
That's why he lets it get away with so much.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, time.
Then can I drown an eye unused to flow for precious friends hid in death's stateless night, and weep afresh love's long since cancelled woe, and moan the expense of many a vanished sight.
Good grief.
Yeah.
It started off with a sigh.
Yeah. And now we've got moans and weeping
Yeah.
and him saying he doesn't cry much. But I think it seems like he's trying to have it both ways, where he's saying that he's emotional, but not too emotional, where he says, drown and I unused to flow. It kind of feels like a coward's way out, like when people cover songs, love songs, and they change the gender.
Yeah.
You're like, don't do that. Keep it how it was.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very true, actually. What we've discovered about Shakespeare in previous episodes is that he is emotionally a wee bit stunted, I think, but pretends to be.
Do you think it's the
very
thing of
open.
like, you stay the age you got famous at? So when did Shakespeare get famous? Maybe he's that age forever.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. That's the other thing you need to know about these. I don't really know anything about Shakespeare.
Okay.
I don't know how old he was when he wrote this. Do you think the fame would get you in the same way as it does now? Maybe. It's hard to say, isn't it? Do you reckon he was strutting around? Obviously, what would the equivalent of paparazzi be?
Yeah, I think people were coming up to him in taverns and stuff.
Do you
and
think?
being like, sorry, I don't normally do this, but my wife loves you.
Can I buy you a pint of ale?
No, I do think.
Really, you think he was a recognizable figure out in the world? Well, I guess he did
in
act
certain
in some-
circles, yeah, and especially because he was an actor.
Yeah, so Nightmare at Stage Door coming out of the globe.
Yeah, and he would always be going,
Oh God,
so
yeah.
many of you,
And maybe a different outfit every night.
Yeah,
he'd
he was
wear
doing sort of Lily Allen.
the Lily Allen thing recently, where she was at Stage Door and wore a different outfit every
He's
night.
doing that different rough.
Different rough every night. Okay, so he's having a cry about the time he's wasted, and he's saying, "I don't really cry much, by the way." And then is he said about friends that have died?
Yeah, which is death's dateless night. What do you think he means by that? Because does that mean that people are just, it's never ending, that everyone around you is dying? What does it mean? It's death's dateless night.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, it does sound like a sort of never-ending cycle of. I mean, death doesn't have a date, like, as in it just,
a date with death.
A date with death.
The new Theo Cowan play.
He doesn't have a. Yeah, death can happen whenever, right? On any date.
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think that's it. I think you're right. Rather than it being like never ending, is that it could be at any time.
Could be at any time.
You have no control over it.
And obviously back then people were dropping dead left, right and centre. So he must have a lot of dead friends.
Yeah.
Which is sad,
Yeah.
Fair play. I'd be crying, that's for sure.
Well, but not too much.
But not too much. And I would make sure that everyone knows that. So for friends, and is that where we finish that?
Yeah, and weep afresh loves. No, I read the next two couplets.
Okay,
and
yeah.
Weep afresh loves long since cancelled woe.
So that's sort of old loves.
Yeah,
old flames.
Yeah.
So thinking about, do you reckon he sounds very single at this point, doesn't he?
Well, spiritually single, yeah.
Spiritually.
But was he married? Probably.
Probably, yeah. But in his head he wasn't.
Yeah.
His wife must have been fuming hearing him talk about that. Maybe if he gave it to his wife sometimes to proofread.
Yeah, that's bleak.
She'd just be going, hold on a second. Thinking about past loves. So he's crying about that, crying about past loves as well.
Yeah. And moan the expense of many a vanished sight. Just, I guess, things you'll never see again. Which it's quite interesting, the thing of like the things around him changing, because sometimes I feel like when I think about history and the past, I kind of think of the things around them as quite static, and since then it's changed a lot. Like if like you look out into London, you're like, wow, it's so different than what Shakespeare would have looked at, but you're not really considering that like it was changing while he was alive.
Yeah, absolutely. Massive change, I guess. Yeah.
This is pure conjecture.
Well, no, I that sounds totally reasonable to me. And not just sights, do you think, as well? Like just things, just general things.
Like his favorite boot that went missing and he never figured out where it went.
Where is that boot? Starts crying about it. Stop crying. Get over it. Okay, let's continue.
Then can I grieve at grievances foregone, and heavily from woe to woe tell o'er the sad account afore bemoaned moan, which I new pay as if not paid before. Now, here's where I get mad at him.
Yeah, there's often a section like this where you go, what are you doing?
Like, is he even keeping track of this at
He
this
doesn't
point?
know what
Why
he's
do we
saying.
have to then?
He doesn't know what he's saying. And look, I think we're bold enough, to say this live out into the world. Shakespeare didn't know what he was saying in this part. He got a bit confused and he kept it in because he's lazy and didn't want to edit it.
Yes.
But if we were to have a crack at working out what he's saying, so read that first line again.
Please.
Sorry. So sorry.
Then can I grieve at grievances foregone. So be sad at sadnesses that have already happened.
Yeah, which he's talked about in length already.
Yeah. And heavily from woe to woe tell o'er. Now, not a clue what this line means.
And tell
o'er, I don't know.
So, o'er.
Well,
over.
Yeah. Oh, okay, now I get it.
That. It's very clever. So he's just tell each woe o'er.
Oh, so wait, so is he telling someone this? I thought he was just sitting there thinking.
Well, I think he's telling it in his head.
Right, okay, and he's imagining everyone being like, that's so sad.
Yeah, yeah. So he's just telling each woe over and over.
Okay,
the woes going over and over in his head. That's how I imagine it.
Makes sense. The sad account of fore bemoaned moan, which I knew pay as if not paid before.
So the, sad account of sad things that have already happened that he's thinking of afresh, right? That he hasn't thought of for ages. And he's like, oh, I cried about that back then.
Yeah.
I'm bemoaning it again now.
Yeah.
Digging up old dirt.
Yeah. I mean, basically the same as then can I grieve at grievances foregone. He's just saying it again.
Same thing again. He likes to do that as well. So it's sort of like self-therapy, really.
Yeah.
Thinking about things in the past, bringing them back up, crying about them, and then going, thank you very much.
Yeah.
I wonder how long this whole episode for him lasts. Is he at this chair for hours crying, or is it just 5 minutes?
Or is it sort of a mood that takes him in the autumn?
Yeah,
he
maybe.
Just has a kind of ennui for months.
And it happens quite a lot, do you think?
Yes.
He feels like this a lot?
Yes.
Yes, and I will not expand. Okay, well, it's now time to move on to...
Wait, you didn't translate which I knew pay as if not paid before.
I don't want to. I knew pay... Well, isn't that...
This is because he's his own therapist. So at the end, he's stood up from the chaise he's been laying on, and then he rifles through his little purse, goes, there's the coins rattling around, and then he goes, thank you, doctor, and he puts it in his own hand.
Yeah, that's
that line means.
That's a great image. So he just pays himself.
Yep.
Is that what, I think that's what we've come to. Yeah, which I knew pay as if not paid before.
Yeah, he said, I forgot for the last session. I did it myself. So I'll pay again now. And
We'll forget.
We're even for that.
Yeah, for all of those last sessions. He actually owes himself a lot of money because he bemoaned those years ago. So, oh no, I forgot about that session and also the session before. And I did say I'll pay you.
Yes.
But now he's just paying them.
And he's saying, you know what? Let's call it quits.
Yeah, I'll give you this. Call it quits.
Yeah.
See you next week.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So that's very clear what that is.
Yeah.
Now, I was getting ahead of myself earlier, but I think it's time for the final couplet.
Do you have a sound effect for that? Well, as I said before, I believe this to be tacked on, but I'll do my best.
Yeah, well,
the show must go on. But if the while I think on thee, dear friend, all losses are restored and sorrows end. Just laying it on a bit thick by the very and sorrows end.
Everything sad ends.
Like, come on. I feel like if you gave this as a Mother's Day card, even your mom would be like, okay.
Okay, that's a bit much. So what he's saying here is that he thinks about his friend, in inverted commas, I think.
Yeah.
Or do you think it might just be his friend?
Yeah, or someone who's paying him for this sonnet.
Exactly, yeah.
She's the best friend of all.
Maybe it is paid for by some lord or king.
No, that's genuinely what I thought it
really?
was. a patron.
Right. So
And
they
he was
said,
like, I have just the thing.
and then he puts it up on his wall at home and says, look, Shakespeare really does
Yes.
love me.
Yeah.
Wow, God, I hadn't thought about that. I've been so pure in thinking that these are for his friends and his lovers, not thinking that he could have actually been paid for them. And...
Yeah, well, I thought that was a thing. I don't know. No, I don't want to disrupt the storyline of this.
No, I mean, I'll continue thinking what I think. Nothing
Yes.
you say will ever sway me away.
No, it doesn't
from the
usually, so why
purity-
start now?
from the purity of thought that I have. That's really made me quite angry, actually.
Okay.
That someone might have paid him for this.
Yeah.
But he's basically saying, you know, I think about you and everything, all of those I wipe my tears with a little hanky.
That were barely there.
That were barely there. They were hardly there. If I did have tears.
Yeah.
And sorrow's end.
Yeah.
All losses restored.
Yeah.
This person must be incredible.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you were to have someone in your life do you think there is someone that you can just think about and all sorrow ends and all losses are restored?
All losses are restored in the world, or for me just thinking of them?
For you.
No.
But for the world?
Yes.
So there's someone that you think about them, all losses for the world are
Yes,
restored.
and I can't say who.
Try and guess at home. Try and guess. Well, that's Sonnet 30.
Mm-hmm.
Hell of a sonnet.
Mm-hmm.
Thoughts, feelings about it as a whole? Anything to add?
I think that he goes a bit, the first half, I'm all there. And I especially like it starting out with him zoning out. And then I get, it's quite sad. It makes me very sad to think about someone reflecting on their life at whatever age he is here. I imagine him to be 90, 95. Yeah. And he's just pissed off that it didn't work out and wails, my dear time's waste. I don't like the thought of that. I like the thought of people sort of being at peace with things as we age.
Yeah,
he's
scary.
Saying, listen up, that doesn't happen.
Yeah, that's scary.
And friends die relentlessly, and exes are jerks, and I'm all there for that. And then he goes a bit loop-de-loo with the woe bemoan, but woe to woe on an opposite day behind, and he loses me a bit there, and then he really friggin' loses me with the tacked on final couplet.
I mean, that's a hell of an analysis. I totally agree with you, actually, on this one. There wasn't any need for fighting between us.
No.
I think we were on the same page on the whole.
Mm-hmm.
Although you do think that this was paid for by
Yes.
a lord or a king. And those are the only ranks that I know. I'm very aware that I've said lord and king.
At a time when there was
At
probably a
time when
queen.
there probably was a queen. And what is the female equivalent of a lord?
A lordess.
Lordess, of course. Makes sense. I was going to say lordrette.
Yeah. So we're a lord and lordrette. Or a kingette.
Yeah, kingette. lordrette.
Kingina.
Kingita.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. Fantastic. Well, thanks for that insightful analysis. And I think that everyone at home will be thrilled to finally know what the meaning of Sonnet 30 is. And I have asked you, Emma, to go away and write your own version of this, which I would love to hear. And I'm sure everyone else would at home.
Okay.
So if you can go ahead and read that, please, that would be brilliant.
Sometimes when I sit and stare into space, I think of the past and it stinks. I didn't get most of the things I thought I would. What the hell? And I don't really cry, but sometimes I think of everything that's happened to me and I start to pour one out through my eyes. For dead buddies, for exes, for all the places and things I'll never ever see again. I cry about all this like a big dumb baby, like it just happened. Time passes and I'm running behind, crying over it. But I've done this before, so I'm just stacking tears on top of old tears and I don't feel any better for it. But then, somehow, I remember you, and nothing seems so bad when you are there.
I absolutely love that. That in itself was a bit of poetry. What I do is makes it seem so terrible. I do a pretty literal translation. Yours is so in your own voice and it's coming from you, and I just think that's so good.
Thanks.
Well, Emma, that concludes this week's episode and the end of an episode with my first ever guest, and it's been an absolute joy and a privilege
and
to
an
have
honor.
you on, and an honor.
Yes.
To have a Laudrette live on the show. Any parting words? Anything to leave the audience with?
I just don't want people to think I cry normally.
Yeah.
Even though I wrote that sonnet. That's not something I usually do.
Fantastic. Bye.
Bye.